On the evening of March 13, 1997, a series of lights suddenly appeared in the night sky in Nevada, Phoenix, Tucson, and the Mexican state of Sonora. Thousands of people witnessed these strange lights between 7:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. MST. At first, the U.S. military denied any involvement. Later, the U.S. Air Force admitted that the lights were part of a field exercise. Many were dissatisfied with the explanation and requested the government to conduct further investigations. Unfortunately, nothing happened. Today, many still wonder whether the Phoenix lights were truly part of a military exercise or something out of this world. Join us as we delve deep into the different witness reports and the various theories of what this series of lights could be, as we try to find out what most likely happened. The first witness that reported seeing the lights did so at around 6:55 p.m. The man, whose identity remains unknown, stated that he saw a V-shaped object in the night sky above Henderson, Nevada. The object was around the size of a Boeing 747, and it made a sound like rushing wind. It had 6 lights along the leading edge. He stated that the object traveled in a straight line from the northwest to southeast, disappearing from his view over the horizon. At 8:15 p.m. MST, an unidentified former police officer from Paulden, Arizona, saw a cluster of reddish or orange lights in the sky as he was driving north after leaving his house. The lights were to the west of his car. There were 4 lights clustered together and a 5th one that seemed to be trailing after the group. According to the witness, each of the lights in the formation seemed to have 2 separate sources of orange light. The man immediately turned back towards home, got a pair of binoculars, and watched the lights as they disappeared over the horizon to the south. He was able to observe the lights for an estimated 2 minutes. He reported that he didn't hear any sounds. Around 8:17 p.m. MST, people from Chino Valley, Prescott, Dewey, Cords Junction, Wickenburg, Crave Creek, Prescott Valley, and many other communities located in the north and west of Phoenix started calling law enforcement officers, the media, the National UFO Reporting Center, and Luke Air Force Base. They all reported seeing a solid object in the sky that was blocking the stars as it passed over their area. There were marked differences in their reports which confused the authorities. Some witnesses stated that they saw 5 lights. Others reported seeing 7 lights. There were even some people who claimed they saw more than 7 lights. The colors of the lights were also different. Some saw distinctly white or yellow lights. Others reported that the lights were red or orange. Even the speed of the object varied in the reports. Some reported that the lights were moving at high speed. Others claimed that the lights moved at a slow pace. And there were some who said that the lights seemed to have hovered motionless for several minutes. Because of the discrepancies, as well as the large number of reports coming in from various communities at a rapid pace, suspicions arose that there were actually multiple objects passing over Arizona that night. One of the witnesses was John Kaiser, who was standing outside with his family in Prescott Valley. They saw a cluster of lights just west-northwest of where they were standing. The lights had a triangular formation. The light at the nose of the object was white, but the rest of the lights in the formation were red. They were able to observe the lights for around 2 to 3 minutes using binoculars. Then the object passed directly over them, before going to the right and disappearing as it headed to the southeast of Prescott Valley. While they couldn't estimate how high the object was in the sky, they felt that it was flying at a fairly low height, and it made no sound whatsoever. In Dewey, Tom Lay and his wife, son, and grandson observed the lights which were above Prescott Valley, while they themselves were 65 miles away. They saw 5 separate and distinct lights in the formation of an arc. Over the space of 10 minutes or more, they watched the lights as it moved towards them. As it drew nearer, they realized that the lights were actually in the shape of an upside-down V. When the lights appeared just a couple of miles away, the family reported that the object seemed to have a shape similar to that of a 60-degree carpenter's square, with 1 light in the front and 2 on each side. The object seemed to be about 100 to 150 feet above them. The speed of the object's movement made it seem like it was hovering in the sky. There was no sound coming from the object, even as it passed over their heads and went through an opening between the peaks of the mountain range towards Squaw Peak Mountain in the direction of Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. In a suburb northwest of Phoenix called Glendale, witnesses saw an object pass over their heads sometime between 8:30 and 8:45 p.m. MST. The object was high enough that parts of it were obscured by the thin clouds. Dana Valentine spotted the lights from his backyard. He called his father, an aeronautics engineer, to see it. According to their description, it was a V-shaped craft that was hovering at 500 feet. The outline of the object could be observed behind the lights, but they couldn't actually see the mass. All they could see was some sort of grey, wavy distortion of the night sky. While they didn't speculate as to what it was, they did admit that it seemed to have a technology that they had never seen before. One group of 3 people who were just north of Phoenix at the time reported that they saw a large wedge-shaped craft pass overhead. It seemed to be gliding. The craft had 5 lights located on its ventral surface. According to the witnesses, the craft blocked out around 70 to 90 degrees of the sky. It went south and passed between 2 mountain peaks. A mother and her 4 daughters also witnessed the unidentified object. They were at the intersection of Indian School Road and 7th Avenue when they saw it. They described it as similar to the shape of a sergeant's strips. It came from the north over Camelback Mountain before it stopped directly above them, where it stayed hovering for around 5 minutes. According to the group, the object had a faint glow along its trailing edge and was able to cover at least 30 to 40 degrees of the sky. They saw the object start to move slowly. As it was moving, it appeared to emit a white beam of light at the ground. At the same time, the 7 lights on its leading edge suddenly dimmed and then disappeared. The object was moving in the direction of Sky Harbor International Airport, which was just a few miles to the south from where the group was. The object was also witnessed by 2 air traffic controllers in the airport tower, as well as pilots on the ground, and those who were on final approach from the east. While they were able to see the object, their radars failed to capture it. One of the air traffic controllers, Bill Grava, described the incident as weird and inexplicable. Years later, he still says that he doesn't know what to think or have an idea of what it was. In Scottsdale, Arizona, an amateur astronomer named Mitch Stanley was also able to observe the lights through a telescope. According to his report, the lights were clearly individual airplanes. Another witness in Scottsdale was a former airline pilot with 13,700 hours of flight time. He reported that the object seemed to have many lights which started to dim as it got closer to him. He also reported that the object seemed to execute a distinct turn as it neared him. Aside from the reports, some witnesses were able to capture the V-shaped object on tape. On it, you can see that there are 3 lights on each side, with a 7th on at the top. Conservative estimates given of the object's size gauged it to be as wide as the length of 3 football fields. Others claimed that it was more than a mile long. Around 10 p.m. that same evening, a large number of people in Phoenix reported seeing a row of brilliant lights hovering in the sky or slowly falling. The lights seemed to be in the formation of a boomerang. Hundreds of witnesses saw the lights turn on and off at regular intervals. Many reported that the object where the lights were embedded was huge, possibly 6,000 feet. It was silent and slow-moving. Based on the witness reports, investigators concluded that there were actually 2 incidents that night. The first incident occurred early in the evening when numerous witnesses saw a V-shaped object flying south. The second incident occurred much later, involving a V-shaped craft as large as several football fields combined, hovered over the city of Phoenix. The question was, what were these lights? Where did they come from? Were they a sign of life from outer space? Phoenix Councilwoman Frances Barwood was the first official to demand answers from the government regarding the Phoenix Lights incident. The Air Force was tasked by the local government to investigate the incident, but they stated that they were unable to do so because of Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book was a study conducted by the U.S. Air Force on unidentified flying objects. When it ended in 1969, its official findings stated that there is no evidence of extraterrestrial vehicles. Whatever people saw, these are just either misidentifications of natural phenomenon or conventional aircraft. So, citizens decided to ask for help from independent organizations such as the Mutual UFO Network. However, the call for the government to provide answers didn't stop. The governor of Arizona at the time, Fife Symington, stated that he hadn't heard about the incident. Then, on June 19, 1997, he held a press conference to address the issue. Unfortunately, it was nothing more than a prank. Symington claimed that the government had captured an alien before bringing a costumed alien in handcuffs to the stage. While the stunt was met with laughter from the press, the public was still left with no answers. Moreover, Symington's press conference made the idea of UFOs hovering over the area a point of ridicule to many. As a result, some witnesses with credible and respectable reputations like Phoenix physicians Dr. Lynn Katay and Dr. Brad Evans decided to keep quiet about what they saw. They felt afraid to come forward because they might become ostracized. At first, the military denied involvement. Later, the United States Air Force, USAF, stated that the Phoenix Lights were a result of a pilot training program called Operation Snowbird, run by the Air National Guard at the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, Arizona. According to the USAF, the first group of lights were made by 5 A-10 Thunderbolt II jets flying in formation at high altitude. The jets flew over Phoenix and then on to Tucson. They landed at Davis-Monthan AFB around 8:45 p.m. The second group of lights, on the other hand, were high-altitude flares dropped by A-10 Warthog aircraft during a training exercise at the Barry M. Goldwater Air Force Range in Pima County, Arizona. How could flares look like that, you ask? According to the USAF, they used slow-falling, long-burning LUU-2B/B illumination flares. The reason why the lights seem to be hovering over Phoenix is due to the rising heat from the burning flares, which created a balloon effect on their parachutes, slowing down their descent. The reason why the lights seemed to wink out was because they fell behind the Sierra Estrella mountain range located to the southwest of Phoenix. Not everyone accepted this explanation, however. Years after the event, even Governor Fife Symington changed his views on this issue. He later admitted that he did observe the V-shaped craft that night. Moreover, he stated that, based on his experience as a former pilot in the United States Air Force, the craft that he saw did not resemble any man-made object he had ever seen. Moreover, he doesn't believe that the lights during the second incident were caused by high-altitude flares because those don't fly in formation. Despite the criticism from the public and requests for further investigations from Governor Symington and then Senator John McCain, the federal government stayed quiet. The government's skittishness in dealing with the eyewitness reports certainly raised flags amongst conspiracy theorists. The delayed explanation from the USAF added to the questions instead of giving the public answers. Take note that the Phoenix Lights wasn't an isolated incident. On February 6, 2007, a series of lights was once again observed in the area and recorded by the local Fox News television station. However, the FAA and military officials claimed that these were also caused by flares dropped by F-16 Fighting Falcon aircraft, which were conducting a training exercise at Luke Air Force Base. On April 21, 2008, another set of lights were once again reported over Phoenix by its residents. According to reports, the lights seemed to change from a square formation to a triangular one over time. One Valley resident reported that shortly after the lights appeared, 3 jets were seen heading west in the direction of the lights. However, an official from Luke Air Force Base denied this. The next day, a Phoenix resident told a newspaper that the lights were actually helium balloons attached with flares that his neighbor released into the air. The report was verified by a police helicopter. The following day, the neighbor who refused to be identified confirmed that he did, in fact, attach flares to helium balloons, which he released from his backyard. So, is it or isn't it an extraterrestrial vehicle? Do we believe in the military's explanation? To be fair, a lot of the controversy isn't about the cluster of lights that were seen hovering over Phoenix between 9:30 and 10 p.m. that night. Comparisons were made between known military flare drops that were recorded by local television stations and the Phoenix lights. Based on the analysis of the flare's luminosity, it is entirely possible that the USAF's explanation for the second incident is true. In addition, Lieutenant Colonel Ed Jones, a Maryland ANG pilot, confirmed in March 2007 that he had flown one of the aircraft that dropped the flares on that night. His squadron, the 104th Fighter Squadron, was at the Davis-Monthan AFB on a training exercise. They flew training sorties to the Goldwater Air Force Range. In much simpler terms, the 104th Fighter Squadron was responsible for the lights hovering over Phoenix that night. But the object sighted hours before, the V-shaped craft that was witnessed by many individuals as it passed over many communities, could not be explained away by a formation of 5 A-10 jets on a training exercise or flares. According to former F-16 pilot Ty Groh, flares in the sky can actually be influenced by the wind, just like hot air balloons. A steady breeze could cause the flares to move all at the same time, while keeping them at a uniform distance. Moreover, extremely bright objects like flares can appear closer than they really are. Witnesses that saw an actual physical object behind the Phoenix lights, however, disagree. How can flares traverse an entire state in a solid V formation? Some of the people who witnessed the lights were as far as Las Vegas and New Mexico. One intriguing part of the Phoenix Lights mystery is a call made to the National UFO Reporting Center at 3:20 a.m., just 8 hours after the sightings. The call was from a young man who claimed to be an airman stationed at Luke Air Force Base, which was located to the west of Phoenix in Litchfield Park. According to him, 2 USAF F-15C fighters had been scrambled from Luke AFB and had intercepted one of the objects. During the call, he provided detailed information that the investigators would later be able to confirm using the various witness reports. 2 days after his call, the airman called again to inform the organization that he was being transferred to Greenland. The National UFO Reporting Center never heard from him again. Another interesting fact is that there was no coverage of the Phoenix lights in the print media after the event, except for a handful of local newspapers such as the Prescott Daily Courier. Phoenix newspapers and the national press were informed about the lights, but it wasn't until almost 10 weeks later, around mid-June, that a front-page article about the Phoenix lights appeared in USA Today. Moreover, in 2019, an FOIA request made by John Greenwald revealed that there were no flares dropped by the Air Force at that point in time. In fact, there wasn't even a training exercise recorded as taking place in that area. And here's another fun fact for you. In 2007 and 2017, footage of UFOs filmed by Navy pilots got leaked. The objects were called Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAP, which appeared in 2004 and 2015. The footage, by the way, was officially authenticated by the Pentagon and DoD. As of 2023, the aerial phenomena remain unidentified. Some believe these objects are interplanetary or interdimensional in nature. Others speculate that they may be advanced technology developed by the government that has yet to be disclosed to the public. We don't know for sure, but it does give us an idea of what most likely happened on the night that the Phoenix lights were seen. Yes, there is some plausibility with the USAF's explanation, but as many of the witnesses and skeptics say, it really doesn't fully explain everything. It's hard to imagine that flares would move at a uniform distance from each other after being blown by a breeze. It's also hard to believe that many people could fail to recognize jets flying in formation as it passed over their heads. Jets that emitted no sound, by the way. As crazy as it sounds, we have to admit that the Phoenix Lights may just be a UFO. Now, are we talking extraterrestrials? Not really. Evidence from the leaked Navy footage does prove the existence of UFOs. There's no question about it. However, we cannot definitely say that the unidentified flying object is from outer space. It is possible that it was a classified aircraft, one with advanced technology that it was able to fly silently across a state. And the reason why the military took time to explain the phenomena is because they needed to come up with a good cover story to divert the people's attention. Then again, the lights might really be of extraterrestrial nature, and the government didn't want the public to panic. So they created a plausible explanation, controlled the media, and refused any requests for further investigations. Unfortunately, we can't be sure either way. The only thing we know is that whatever they are, they're up there. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.